Let this be our final battle!
It's nostalgia time once again. Today we'll take you back to the 80s, when action reigned supreme. Even if you might find some of it rather outdated or even cringe as per today's standards, there's no ignoring the fact that the 80s gave us some of the best superhero movies of all time. Now, without wasting any more time, let's get right into the major superhero movies from the 80s. We're going to list 25 of them in no particular order. So sit back and enjoy this trip down memory lane. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Flash Gordon, 1980. What a flashy way to begin the list. Flash Gordon, directed by Mike Hodges. You found that cringe, didn't you? Well, this Flash Gordon movie is full of cringe-worthy 80-esque dialogues that you are going to somehow find endearingly hilarious. The movie follows a football star, Gregory Flash Gordon, who gets involved in a conflict on an alien planet, Mongo. The outcome is an all-out war with Mongo's Emperor Ming the Merciless, who seeks to destroy the Earth just because he's bored and wants something to do. Yeah, really. As Flash joins with another race of aliens in an effort to save the planet. Flash Gordon follows a pretty straightforward plot for a superhero movie. However, it's often ranked amongst the best of what the 80s has to offer. It's playful, humorous, and packed with action. The tone of the movie managed to strike a chord with viewers and critics then, just as it does now. This movie's in a league of its own, defined by its colorfully outrageous style, whimsical atmosphere, and unique blend of sci-fi, fantasy, comedy, and opera. Batman, 1989. Batman is a superhero movie directed by Tim Burton and stars Michael Keaton in the leading role of Batman, the masked vigilante seeking to keep his beloved Gotham City safe against the evil that raises its ugly head every now and then. This Batman movie follows Batman as he faces off against his most challenging enemy, Joker, making it one of the most epic movies ever made. Tim Burton's Batman movie was one of the finest, as it did everything to establish Batman as everyone's favorite caped hero, and that's exactly why it received both box office success and critical acclaim. In fact, this movie laid the grounds for the Dark Knight trilogy that was to come later on and elevate Batman's status to greater heights. Moreover, who didn't bawl their eyes out when Heath Ledger won an Oscar for his portrayal of Joker in The Dark Knight? But before Ledger, there was the great Jack Nicholson, who received a Golden Globe nomination for his portrayal of Joker in Burton's Batman. Not bad for a superhero movie, huh?
Damn it. Shit. Looking for me?
RoboCop, 1987. RoboCop is a sci-fi movie directed by Paul Verhoeven. This futuristic movie is set in Detroit, which is on the brink of a collapse due to increasing crime rates and dwindling finances. During this time, a private corporation called Omni Consumer Products obtains a contract to privatize Detroit's police force. Their plan is to create cyborgs who are going to be central in eradicating crime in Detroit. Their experiment involves transferring the brain of a cop killed in the line of duty, Alex Murphy, inside a robot. And so, the RoboCop is born. While RoboCop assists his masters at first, after learning of their evil plans and seeing Detroit descending into further chaos, RoboCop turns on them. RoboCop was quite a hit with the viewers at the time of its release, as it was a superbly made superhero movie. RoboCop also received mostly positive reviews from critics at the time of its release. The movie was praised for its unique ability to serve as a social commentary on the society while also being an action sci-fi movie. Moreover, if we're to consider the present times where AI is threatening to overtake the world, then the movie becomes all the more poignant as it showcases how even a robot can lament the downfall of humanity.
Then die as you deserve to.
Superman 2, 1980. You were waiting for Superman, weren't you? Well, duh. No superhero list in the world is complete without the OG. Superman 2 was made following the overwhelming response that its predecessor, Superman, received. Superman 2, directed by Richard Lester, follows Christopher Reeve, Superman, actually Clark Kent, as he decides to give up his powers and lead an ordinary life with his love, Lois Lane. However, this ordinary life he has built for himself is disrupted when three Kryptonian exiles descend upon the Earth with a little help from Superman's arch-nemesis, Lex Luthor. Once more, it's up to Superman to save the day from these 3 Kryptonian exiles who leave no stone unturned to conquer the Earth. The perfect sequel to Superman, Superman 2 once again received an overwhelmingly positive response from viewers all over the world. This superhero movie builds on its predecessor, offering viewers not just a superhero to marvel at, but real characters that viewers can relate to. Not for nothing has Superman 2 often been ranked amongst the best superhero movies to ever be made. Masters of the Universe, 1987. Masters of the Universe is a fantasy movie directed by Gary Goddard. The movie begins on the planet Eternia, where the evil warlord Skeletor has found the Cosmic Key, a mysterious object that can open portals to anywhere in the universe, making him invincible. However, He-Man is dead set on thwarting Skeletor's plans and finds the inventor who created the Cosmic Key, Gwildor. Gwildor also happens to have the prototype version of it. During one of the battles on Eternia, the Cosmic Key gets transported to the Earth, where it's found by a bunch of teenagers. Now it's up to He-Man and Gwildor to locate the Cosmic Key by using the remaining prototype. They successfully reach the Earth, but are unfortunately overwhelmed by Skeletor and his army, who have also arrived to descend upon the Earth. Masters of the Universe failed to achieve box office success or critical acclaim at the time of its release. It was slated for its shallow characters and some subpar acting. However, the movie has an appeal of its own for certain viewers. They've appreciated it for its creativity, practical effects, and efforts to bring He-Man to the big screen. But it is Frank Langella's Skeletor that has been singled out for praise, as he delivers a standout performance. His portrayal of Skeletor has a certain gravitas and menace to it that manages to elevate the movie to better standards. The Punisher, 1989. The Punisher, directed by Mark Goldblatt, is among the first portrayals of the anti-hero on screen. The movie follows Frank Castle, the Punisher, a former cop turned vigilante, as he mercilessly hunts down crime families in the quest for justice for his family killed years ago. As he's on the verge of attaining what he set out to do, which is to wipe out crime, a faction of Yakuza arrives in the US, setting the stage for a face-off between the Punisher and his most challenging foe to date. The Punisher is among the darker superhero movies of the 80s, and it expertly captures the character of this beloved anti-hero. While it was slammed by the critics at the time of its release, it did achieve box office success. It remains a fan favorite after all these years, and has left a long-lasting legacy behind, as it's often praised for being the most honest adaptation of the comics by fans and critics alike. Moreover, the movie's approach to the Punisher and the stellar performances by the cast have also contributed to its appeal. Swamp Thing, 1982. Swamp Thing is a superhero movie directed by Wes Craven. It follows the scientist, Dr. Alec Holland, who is transformed into a monster called Swamp Thing after his laboratory is sabotaged by the antagonist, Anton Arcane. It's then up to the Swamp Thing to fight back against Arcane and his men to save his girlfriend, Alice Cable, and his research from falling into the wrong hands. As Swamp Thing explores the origins of the monster, it is quite dark and, well, monstrous. The setting and tone of the movie give it more of a horror-like feel. The movie did not receive great box office success or critical acclaim at the time of its release. Over time, however, viewers began to appreciate it for its mostly different take on the superhero genre, its direction, its 80s appeal, and most importantly, for the entertainment it offers. These are some of the reasons why Swamp Thing is a fun and flawed entry on this list. The Toxic Avenger, 1984. The Toxic Avenger, directed by Michael Hertz and Lloyd Kaufman, is a superhero movie that revolves around the janitor Melvin Junko, who is injured and transforms into the Toxic Avenger. As the Toxic Avenger, Melvin becomes a vigilante, seeking to eliminate crime from his community and vengeance against those responsible for his injuries and subsequent transformation. The Toxic Avenger is a different kind of superhero movie on this list, as it incorporates elements from slasher movies and is rather humorous for a vigilante superhero movie. The movie was widely slammed by the critics at the time of its release, so it might come as a surprise that it still manages to hold a 70% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, you see, over time, The Toxic Avenger has attained somewhat of a cult status amongst viewers. While acknowledging that the movie is limited in its appeal, viewers have praised it for its quirky style, unique storytelling, and also for its ability to push the boundaries and deliver certain provocative scenes that might be considered offensive by today's standards. Exterminator 2, 1984. Exterminator 2 is a superhero movie written and directed by Mark Buntsman. A sequel to The Exterminator, the movie follows John Eastland, otherwise known as the Exterminator, as he once again returns to New York to bust several drug crimes with his flame-throwing ability. Exterminator 2 is arguably the worst-rated movie on the list, receiving highly negative critical reviews. Even currently, the movie holds a 0% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So what on earth is it doing on this list, you may ask? Well, Exterminator 2 may not be as realistic or as deep as its predecessor. That in itself is no reason to write it off. You see, its distinctiveness is exactly what makes it appealing to certain viewers. It dares to embrace itself as an action movie and strikes a more humorous tone. And while that may turn some viewers off, a few others find it rather enjoyable. The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, 1989. The Trial of the Incredible Hulk is a made-for-TV superhero movie that follows the events of the TV movie that came before it, The Incredible Hulk Returns. Directed by Kenneth Johnson, the movie follows Hulk and Daredevil as they team up to defeat the powerful crime lord Wilson Fisk, otherwise known as the Kingpin, who is an enemy of both Spider-Man and Daredevil. Upon its release, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk received rave reviews. As an Incredible Hulk meets Daredevil movie, it has a lot to offer for both Hulk and Daredevil fans as they come together for some riveting action. Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno have especially been singled out for praise for their portrayals of David Banner and the Hulk, respectively. Moreover, what's also really nice about this movie is that Daredevil gets his fair share of screen time as well. While The Trial of the Incredible Hulk may not deliver spectacular action like some of the more recent high-budget Marvel movies, it still fares much better amongst fans and critics than many of them. Another interesting fact about this movie is that it's the first one to feature a Stan Lee cameo. Howard the Duck, 1986. At this point, you might be wondering what the duck is a duck doing on this list. Well, please hear us out. Howard the Duck, directed by Willard Huyck, is based on a Marvel comic of the same name. It follows an anthropomorphic duck, Howard, who's the outcome of a scientific experiment gone wrong. Still, he arrives on the planet Earth to stop other aliens from gaining control over it. Now, Howard the Duck was never meant to be taken seriously as a superhero movie. It was more of a comic relief. However, Howard the Duck was slammed by critics and fans alike at the time of its release for its flawed execution and silly approach to movie making. Over the years, though, it's gained some kind of a cult following for being a one-of-a-kind superhero movie. Fans enjoy it for its oddity and often revisit it for some pure nostalgic bliss.
Prepare to terminate.
Tron, 1982. Tron is a sci-fi movie directed by Steven Lisberger. The movie follows Kevin Flynn, a computer engineer who finds out that his company's executive, Ed Dillinger, has been stealing his hard work. As he tries to hack into the company's system, one thing follows another, and he's transported inside the software. Once inside the software, he has to battle Ed's digital form as well as the master control program. There, he's aided by Tron and Yori, two programs who are sympathetic to Kevin. Quite an unusual movie on this list. Tron was considered groundbreaking at the time of its release, receiving both box office success and critical acclaim. Widely regarded as original and stunning, the movie's impact was also visible in terms of the other movies it inspired, including Toy Story. The success of the movie also gave rise to two sequels, Tron Legacy and Tron Uprising. Tron has often been praised for its forward-thinking and imaginative approach to the digital world. It's also considered to be way ahead of its time in terms of innovation. For these reasons, it manages to captivate viewers worldwide even all these years after its release.
I'll see you in hell!
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, wow, that's a mouthful, is a sci-fi movie based on a Marvel comic and directed by W.D. Richter. The movie follows Buckaroo Banzai, who is perhaps the coolest person to ever exist. even if fictional. Along with being a physicist and neurosurgeon, he's also a rock star. To add to his awesomeness, now it's up to him to save the world from aliens. During the time of its release, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension was panned by viewers and critics alike. It was said to be a parody of sci-fi and rather strange, with its plots and characters going all over the place. However, over time, it found a new life on home video and has gone on to enjoy a dedicated fan base ever since. Fans have praised it for being delightfully imaginative. It's also escapist in its ability to blend adventure, humor, and optimism, and fans just love it for that.
Whatever you say, tough guy.
Captain Avenger.
Hero at Large, 1980. Hero at Large is a superhero movie directed by Martin Davidson. The movie follows Steve Nichols, who agrees to pose as a comic superhero for a movie promotion. Dressed as the superhero, Captain Avenger, he stops a robbery. That's when things turn upside down for him, as he becomes an overnight sensation and is even roped in by the mayor of the city in order to win votes for the upcoming election. Steve slowly comes to the realization that a superhero's life is not all that it's cracked up to be. Hero at Large is more like an underdog movie, as it makes a superhero out of someone who does not have any specific superpowers to speak of. While it didn't receive critical acclaim at the time of its release, with critics going so far as to call it dumb, what really makes this movie endearing is that it's a rare instance where even without any stellar superpowers to speak of, one can still be a hero by doing the right thing. It's a feel-good movie that viewers have come to love.
You're not serious. You want out?
Condor Man, 1981. Condor Man is a superhero movie directed by Charles Jarrett. It follows Woodrow Woody Wilkins, who is a comic book illustrator. He's so imaginative and immersed in his creations that he actually designs a flying costume for his superhero Condor Man and jumps from the Eiffel Tower only to crash into the Seine River. However, when his friend Harry, a CIA clerk, asks him to deliver some documents to Istanbul, he meets Natalia, a beautiful lady who's also a KGB spy. He introduces himself to her as Condor Man. What begins as fun soon goes awry when Natalia wants to defect and enlist Condor Man as the agent to help her out. Condor Man was panned by the critics at the time of its release, with most calling it dull and boring. Yet, some critics said that the movie was very chaste, and even praised its aesthetic appeal and colorful costume. Over time, the movie has also gained a small cult following. A delightful blast from the past, Condor Man stands out for being imaginative, whimsical, and colorful, and viewers find themselves charmed by it. The movie might look outdated, but it does a fine job of combining comic book and spy thriller elements, making for some pure, lighthearted enjoyment. Sheena, 1984. Sheena, also known as Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, is a superhero movie directed by John Guillermin. The movie follows a girl, Sheena, who is raised by a fictional tribe called the Zambuli tribe. They teach her their ways of life, including the ability to communicate with animals. Soon, as the Zambuli face destruction at the hands of Prince Atwani, who wants to exploit their titanium-rich lands, it's up to Sheena to save them. She also receives a helping hand from a friendly reporter along the way. However, the movie has gained a following because it does make a wholehearted effort to combine adventure and fantasy. The production of the movie has also been praised, as it was shot in some beautiful locations, giving it a Jungle Book kind of escapist feel. In fact, Sheena's never-ending appeal even led to talks of a reboot. However, it failed to materialize.
Excuse me, sir, but I need your cab. Cabby! I'm the Toxic Avenger. We've got to save Tromaville.
The Toxic Avenger Part 2, 1989. The Toxic Avenger Part 2 is the sequel to The Toxic Avenger, released in 1984. The second installment of the Toxic Avenger series was directed by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hertz. The movie follows the aftermath of Melvin Junko's transformation into a superhero, the Toxic Avenger. His girlfriend, Claire, finds him a job at Tromaville Center for the Blind. However, a company called Apocalypse Incorporated zeroes in on Tromaville to set up a site, and as they begin to take over the Tromaville Center for the Blind by planting a bomb, the Toxic Avenger attacks them and chases them away. Not ones to let setbacks get in their way, Apocalypse Inc. finds out the Toxic Avenger's father had abandoned him while he was a baby and is now in Japan. So they plant a psychologist to convince him to go to Japan and find his father, a decision also supported by his girlfriend. As the Toxic Avenger leaves for Japan, Apocalypse Inc. starts to take over Tromaville. The Toxic Avenger 2 was a failure at the box office and with the critics. In fact, right now, it holds a 0% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. What's it doing on this list, then? Good question. Well, The Toxic Avenger 2, while not being a great or greatly made movie, and nowhere near the iconic status of its predecessor, is still worth a watch. It's energetic and chaotic, all at the same time. Much like its predecessor, it doesn't shy away from tackling some bold themes, like corporate crimes, for instance. Sure, some scenes may be over the top and not to everyone's liking, but you'll see they can still manage to be appealing. Superman 3, 1983. Superman 3 is a superhero movie directed by Richard Lester. The movie follows Webster, an industrialist who wants to control the world's oil supply. He sees Superman as a barrier to his aims and orders a computer scientist, Gus Gorman, to create synthetic kryptonite that can weaken Superman. The synthetic kryptonite instead brings about certain changes in Superman, making him more cynical and immoral. However, his alter ego, Clark Kent, remains mild-mannered. Now, it's up to Clark Kent to defeat this new evil Superman. Superman 3 did not receive the same love as its predecessors, Superman and Superman 2. In fact, compared to their universal acclaim, Superman 3 only received a relatively average box office success and mixed reviews from the critics. While being a disappointing sequel and a missed opportunity, Superman 3 still makes this list because it offers a different take on Superman. Viewers get to witness him go bad, or almost go bad at least. Moreover, the presence of some familiar characters like Superman, Lana Lang, Lois Lane, and Gus Gorman, along with some 80s-esque action, still make it appealing to fans of the superhero genre. The Return of Captain Invincible, 1984. The Return of Captain Invincible is a superhero musical movie directed by Philippe Mora. The movie follows the superhero, Captain Invincible, who once was everyone's favorite superhero given his heroics during the Great Depression and World War II. However, during the McCarthy era, he is forced into retirement as he's branded a communist for his red cape and ideology. So he seeks refuge in Australia and becomes an alcoholic. However, as his nemesis, Mr. Midnight, resurfaces and steals a super weapon, the US government calls upon him to swoop in and save them again. The Return of Captain Invincible did not receive box office success or critical acclaim at the time of its release. But over a period of time, it has gained a cult following, and it was ahead of its time in being rather postmodern. It was rather forward-thinking in terms of challenging the traditional superhero tropes and presenting flawed characters. While it cannot be forgiven for trying too hard to be entertaining, it still does manage to be endearingly entertaining. Moreover, its musical numbers are to die for. The Return of Swamp Thing, 1989. The Return of Swamp Thing is a superhero movie directed by Jim Wynorski. A sequel to Swamp Thing, the movie follows Abigail Arcane. After her mother's death, she tracks down her stepfather, Dr. Anton Arcane, to confront him. Dr. Arcane, meanwhile, with the help of Dr. Lana Zarel, is busy creating an army of monsters he calls the Unmen. These Unmen are created by combining the genes of human beings and animals. The evil being that he is, he also uses Abigail for his genetic experiments. Now it's up to the Swamp Thing to face his arch-nemesis once again and rescue Abigail. The Return of Swamp Thing failed to gain box office success or critical acclaim. It was slated for being silly and absurd. However, the movie has slowly managed to gain a following. For one, viewers have praised it for not being a formulaic sequel to the original. In fact, fans of the sequel have said it works for them because it dares to do something different from the original and does it quite well. For another, it's been praised for the improved appearance of the Swamp Thing and for some really good practical effects. The Incredible Hulk Returns, 1988. The Incredible Hulk Returns is a made-for-TV superhero movie directed by Nicholas Correa. It's based on the Marvel Comics superhero Hulk and follows the original TV series, The Incredible Hulk. The movie follows Dr. David Banner, Hulk's alter ego, as he joins the Joshua Lambert Research Institute in an effort to use their gamma transponder to cure him of his ability to transform into the Hulk. However, a former student of his, Donald Blake, reveals to him that he has come into possession of Thor's hammer and summons Thor, who confronts Banner and triggers his transformation into Hulk. Banner considers this a setback and chastises Blake for the same. However, as mercenaries kidnap Banner's girlfriend, Maggie Shaw, and blackmail him into handing over the gamma transponder in return for her life, it's up to the Hulk to team up with Thor and rescue her. The Incredible Hulk Returns was a hit with fans and critics. The movie brings together two unlikely allies, Hulk and Thor, and expertly weaves in complex themes of identity, love, and sacrifice. Fans of the movie have often lauded it for giving time and space to both Hulk and Thor, while also praising the dynamic between Thor and Blake for being comedic and enjoyable. Overall, it's a fun movie in a campy sort of way. Supergirl, 1984. Supergirl is a superhero movie directed by Janos Vark. The movie is set in the aftermath of the destruction of Krypton, with a small group of survivors living in a sanctuary called Argo City. A powerful device called Omegahedron, which is required for the survival of Argo City, is accidentally sent off to space and reaches the Earth. Now, it's up to Kara Zol-El, Supergirl, to bring it back from the Earth. While on Earth, she also has to face off against a powerful witch called Selena, who recovers Omegahedron and decides to use it for her own evil purposes. Supergirl was released following Superman's success in an effort to explore the other characters connected to Superman. However, the movie bombed at the box office and did not receive critical acclaim either, as critics slated it for not being anything novel. Nevertheless, the movie does a fine job of bringing a well-loved comic series to life, and Helen Slater's portrayal of Supergirl is excellent. The Toxic Avenger Part 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie, 1989. The Toxic Avenger Part 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie is a superhero movie directed by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hertz. The third installment of the Toxic Avenger franchise, the movie set in the aftermath of The Toxic Avenger Part 2, as Apocalypse Inc. is once again in Tromaville to promote its chemicals once again. While the Toxic Avenger was against them last time, it comes as a surprise to the residents of Tromaville that he's their spokesman this time. However, it's so that he can afford surgery for his blind girlfriend, Claire. Nevertheless, his move alienates his community. Eventually, he realizes his mistake when he watches a few kids from his town knocking down his poster and works toward gaining the trust of the Tromaville community, which brings him face to face with the chairman of Apocalypse Inc., who is revealed to be the devil himself. The Toxic Avenger Part 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie, failed at both the box office and with the critics, with some saying that it's the worst installment of the Toxic Avengers series. However, it still offers a different take on the Toxic Avenger, and viewers get to see him do a lot of outrageously adventurous things. The movie's definitely well executed and watchable, and its innovation and depiction of gore have been praised. What's also commendable is that, at its core, it's a satire against big corporations. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, 1987. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace is a superhero movie directed by Sidney J. Furie. The backdrop of the movie is the nuclear arms race between the US and the former Soviet Union, with Superman deciding to do something before the Earth is destroyed. In his quest for peace, he obtains all nuclear warheads and throws them into space. However, just in time to distract him is none other than Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor escapes from prison and creates a superhuman called Nuclear Man to battle Superman. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace is considered the worst Superman movie and has often been ranked amongst the worst movies ever made. It didn't do particularly well at the box office and was heavily panned by critics. However, it has found some praise amongst fans for Christopher Reeve's charming portrayal of Clark Kent and Superman's chemistry with Lois Lane. While more of a footnote in the history of the Superman series, this installation marks Reeve's final appearance as Superman, and for just that, it deserves a little love. The Puma Man, 1980. The Puma Man is a superhero movie directed by Alberto De Martino. The movie follows Jane Dodson, a London-based archaeologist who uncovers a gold mask. The gold mask was entrusted by aliens to Puma Man, a superhuman. While Jane is able to understand what the gold mask is, her employer, Dr. Cobras, has other ideas. He plans to overtake the world by controlling the minds of world leaders. Now it's up to Puma Man to save the world from Dr. Cobras and the power of the gold mask. An Italian superhero movie, The Puma Man often ranks amongst the worst Italian movie, with the director himself saying it was the worst movie he ever made. Nevertheless, it's one of the wackier superhero movies out there and also has some amazing flying sequences. Fans of the movie have found it oddly endearing and absurdly captivating. And as the saying goes, he may be the worst you have ever seen, but he is the Puma Man.
That's Mr. Melvin to you!
Marvelous verdict. So there we have it, folks. Some of the major superhero movies from the 80s. Do you think we missed out on something? Or is there something you'd like to suggest? Please let us know in the comments below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.